Hello dear friends, we carry on learning about associative socionics and today we consider the topic of personality development and forms of consciousness. We will look at the association of four types of energy: ego, id, superego, superid, and existed in the three forms of consciousness, such as collective unconscious, personal unconscious, and I will introduce you to collective conscious, collective conscious, and personal conscious or individual conscious. But we start first with butterfly model, and we associate types of energy with the stages of development. And we will use as analogy the butterfly. So the first stage, the stage of the egg of butterfly, is associated with the development of a baby in the womb, which feels very protective and comfortable in the mother's womb. And there are two functions which represent this kind of quality of comfort, protection. It is functions of superid, introverted sensing, and introverted intuition. So the very first period of development is associated with four types who has got program functions, either introverted intuition or introverted sensing, and these are the types of energy superid. The second stage is a caterpillar stage, is associated with a period of rapid development of a newborn child and with the energy id. It is a childish energy and the valuable function, extroverted sensing and extroverted intuition. It is an active stage of life when through the play the child learns about the world around them. The third stage, the pupa stage, symbolizes the transition period. It is the end of childhood, the start of the teenager years, and going into adulthood. Firstly, young adulthood, and then adulthood of the person. And this is the stage associated with energy ego and valuable function of extroverted ethics and extroverted logic. The next stage is the stage of old adulthood, mature stage of adulthood, and this is butterfly, associated with productivity, self-realization, self-confidence, wisdom, and everything which goes with stable period of life, when the person gives the best of themselves. Before the person, like if we consider the stage of ego, adulthood, the person always learns something new, invest themselves into studies, into career, but at some point he comes to the stage when he feels full of knowledge and he wants to create something new because he feels wisdom. And this is a stage of superego associated with the function of introverted ethics and introverted logics. What happens when the old age come, the real old age come. At this age, the person weakens and withdraws from active life naturally, withdraws from responsibility, and is growing dependent to others. This stage again superate with values of introverted sensing and introverted intuition, and this stage is the preparation for afterlife. So we start the development in the womb of the mother, protective stage of superate, and at the end of life we come back to the same stage, just in a different quality. And the last stage, we can say the last stage of existence, it is a death and a judgment day, where the dark force is capable to take the bad soul into the reign of shadows. That's what we believe may happen. And I remember that on a special day, special occasion, Muslims going around Kaaba counterclockwise. 7 times they go. That could be associated with the 7th stage, which already starts in afterlife. Maybe it starts not for everyone. Maybe some goes into the reign of shadows, some darker places. But the people who are forgiven or rewarded, there is a 7th stage, which is already a new circle of afterlife starts for people. And you probably remember that Kaaba is looks like a square building covered with black material, with black steel, and that reminds of the symbol of extroverted logic and Sensonics, which is just a note. So let's talk about how the form of consciousness are associated with stages of development, because development, which I explained, it is more like on a physical level, what happens with people, how they go through the different types of energy. But there are also changes to consciousness. And changes to consciousness, they of course associated with our age, with periods of life. And we know that we know conscious, subconscious, and unconscious. These 3 forms of consciousness we know. Unconscious unconscious was described firstly by Sigmund Freud as a part of personality where all fears and unresolving conflicts are withdrawn from conscious or ejected by conscious into unconscious, forgotten experiences, bad experiences. But Jung later expanded unconscious. He divided unconscious into the collective unconscious and personal unconscious or individual unconscious. And what actually new he said, Jung, that we have got parts of personality which we inherit as patterns from previous generations. So we are already predisposed to certain characteristics, which is typological characteristics. and they are rooted in unconscious. And personal unconscious or individual unconscious, it is individual experiences, some painful experiences, unresolved issues, and so on, bad experiences. They are what the person goes through life, and they are repressed into unconscious, personal unconscious, and that is information which doesn't reach consciousness. So I have introduced two new forms of consciousness. It is collective consciousness and individual consciousness. So at the very beginning, when the person is in the womb of the mother, prenatal stage, this is a stage of collective unconscious. When the person already has got developing of some characteristics and coming from the parents and previous generations. When the child is born, he slowly transforms, moves to the stage of id energy, from super id energy to id energy. And during id energy, the child learns to reflect on themselves, on their process of thoughts, and he is capable of self-realization as a subject, separate from all objects. So the individual entails the awareness of individual flow of consciousness, of the surrounding reality. And that is very interesting because my grandson, he starts at some point making jokes, saying something wrong as a joke. For example, he can show animal, for example the kitten, and say that is the lion or something. So he already understands that this is not true, and that comes with this separation of objects and understanding that he is separate of other objects, capable of self-reflection and self-awareness. So this is a stage of id, when the individual consciousness appears. The next stage is collective conscious stage. It is when people acquire information. Collective consciousness, it is experiences and knowledge of many other people stored in the books, in some other media information. It is in the libraries. It is what the knowledge was collected by previous generations. And people during their adulthood, they, on one side, they learn and acquire these informations, and on the other hand, they try to create new information to give it back. So it's very active stage of collective consciousness. And later in life, maybe 40 plus age, when the people feel that they have collective conscious quite developed enough, and they might start create something new. And this is the stage of superego. It's also spiritual search. At the stage of mature age, people look for the meaning of life. They consider existential issues because adults, they usually work as many others. They try to create a family, to find a partner, to have children, to have a good job, to have home. They're very busy with maintaining their life and working hard. But at some point they start to ask where my life goes. Did I achieve what I wanted? Do I need change something in my life? And the changes can be superficial, or they can be dramatic, when people change their job, move to another place to live, and so on, or create something new theories, and write the books and so on. And this is also where people look at the religions or at the system of beliefs, and they create a very strong position of what they believe in. It is very difficult to change the mind of people at this stage, because it's already created, and it's at the level of individual unconscious. So deeply rooted is this belief that people might not even understand how they come to believe in this and that system, or why they think that as well. But they usually have got strong opinions on or they have got their own belief system, let's say that. In young age they might be looking and searching, but at that superego stage they usually act as teachers, because they believe they know life, they know enough, and they have got their belief system. This is a slightly different understanding of individual unconscious, which we find in Freud's work or in Jung's work, but that's how I see it. Yes, so spirit energy period, yeah, is linked to prenatal stage, but also it's a very old stage, when people lose their consciousness. It can be collective consciousness. They might forget something, what they learned. Some individual consciousness, if they get ill and have got some mental diseases and so on, they partly lose the consciousness of this life, and they depend on others. They become more like children who is in need of the help of others. But as we know, while it happens, there is a law of conservation of energy. We believe that while the body dies and goes to dust, the soul as an energy carries on in a transformed way to exist. Yeah, that is all what I wanted to tell you about form of consciousness. Yes, I think I mentioned that changes in consciousness, they can be superficial, or at the momentum they come and go. But if there is a repetition of certain influences, of certain situations, then changes in the consciousness will be prolonged as well. That's mechanism of how the consciousness may change. Thank you very much for watching. and I see you in my next video.